Hey YouTube, it's Magician34. We're going to learn some more about Pokemon today. Today we're going to talk about something really important, which is the Mulligan Rule. Mulligans in Pokemon are sometimes a little difficult for people to understand, especially when they've played other games that have Mulligan rules that are a little bit different. So let's learn by doing, first of all, let's get our opening hand. We've shuffled our deck, and we're going to try to draw 7 cards. Let's see there, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Well, an interesting hand, but there's a problem. No basic Pokemon. And you always have to have a basic Pokemon in play in order to keep playing. If you ever don't have a basic Pokemon in play, you lose. But don't worry, if you're in your opening hand, you don't have a basic Pokemon, you don't automatically lose. You get what's called a mulligan, and that's where you take your whole hand, you shuffle it back into your deck, and you draw a new hand of 7 cards in its place. So we don't have any basic Pokemon, and we can check our Pokemon just to be sure. This is stage 1. This is stage 2, so those aren't basic Pokemon. If they were basic, they'd say basic up there. And even though we do have a card that could go look for a Pokemon if we played it, we'd have to get to our turn in order to be able to play it. And we'd be during our turn without a basic Pokemon, so that can't happen. We have to have a basic Pokemon, so we have to take this hand and shuffle it away back into our deck. And try again. Alright, let's try our new hand. Alright, we're trying for a basic Pokemon here. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Well, oh wait, EXs are usually basic Pokemon. And this is an EX Pokemon, it's M Charizard EX, which is short for Mega Charizard, of course. Oh, but even though Mega Charizard isn't a Stage 1 or a Stage 2, it's not a basic Pokemon. It says it's a Mega. And a Mega is kind of a special kind of evolution, and it does not count as a basic Pokemon. So we can't start with Mega Charizard in play. Well, let's see, we don't have anybody else. Oh, hang on a second. Hey, this card, I can play this card, and when I play it, it can become kind of like a basic Pokemon. Well, unfortunately, we have to play this card for it to become a basic Pokemon. And that only happens during our turn when we can play it, so that doesn't count. It's not a basic Pokemon. It doesn't say basic Pokemon up here. It's not a Pokemon card, so we can't count that either. So once again, we get to shuffle our hand away. Now here's the good news. In Pokemon, you get unlimited mulligans until you can find a basic Pokemon. If you mulligan 73 times, so be it. You can. In fact, you have to. It's not a choice. It's part of the rules. You have to. Well, let's try this new hand. Let's see, 4, 5, 6. Ooh, lots of Pokemon in this one. 7. Alright, well, let's take a peek. Well, we've got plenty of Pokemon in this one. Well, let's see. Macargo's a Stage 1. Can't use him. Simisear's a Stage 1. Torkoal. Aha! Torkoal is a basic Pokemon. Well, so we could use him. Let's see. We've got Charizard EX, just regular Charizard EX this time. And he says basic, so we can use him too. Awesome. Let's see. Litleo's basic, and this is the same card. He's a basic. That's good too. We do have Fiery Torch. That's not a basic Pokemon. But we have 4 different Pokemon, all of whom we could use as our active Pokemon. So, we have to keep this hand. Now, this question comes up a little bit. This hand isn't very good, actually. I mean, the evolution Pokemon I have are all for Pokemon that aren't in my hand right now. These Pokemon that want to evolve, I don't have what they evolve into right now. I can't even play this Fiery Torch because it wants me to have a fire energy in my hand. I couldn't power anybody up or anything. This hand would be really bad. So, can I choose to mulligan this hand away? Nope, absolutely not. The only rule for mulligans is you have to take them if you don't have a basic Pokemon, and if you do, you don't get to mulligan because it's not meeting that one rule. That we can only mulligan if we don't have basic Pokemon. So in other words, we have to play this hand. So take that into account when you build your deck, and try to build it in such a way that you try your best to avoid situations like this. I mean, they're going to happen to you sometimes whether you like it or not. That's just statistics. But try your best to avoid them. So we would have to keep this hand. Now there is one other thing. Anytime your opponent has a mulligan, you get to draw a card for it. That's right, you get a free card. That's kind of your reward for not mulliganing. That's right, for not mulliganing. If you and your opponent both mulligan, nobody gets a draw. But if your opponent mulligans and you have a basic Pokemon, then you're going to get a card in return for that. If your opponent mulligans 4 times and you mulligan 1 time, then that means, well, for the first time you both had to mulligan, so nobody gets any extra cards, not your opponent, not you. But those next 3 times, you had a basic Pokemon. So you got to draw 3 extra cards for those. That's awesome. You got to keep your second hand. Your opponent wasn't so lucky. So you get a mulligan draw for all of those turns. Now, once you play out your basic Pokemon face down and anyone on your bench, before you do any mulligan draws, you have to pick your 6 prizes and put them down here. And you actually technically have to wait on your opponent to do all their mulligans until they get a basic Pokemon. And then you draw 1 card for every single one of their mulligans, where you didn't mulligan yourself, that is. So if your opponent mulligans 5 times, and you mulligan 0 times, that means you can draw up to 5 cards for each of those times once you set your prizes and your opponent does get his hand with a basic Pokemon. Notice I say can. You can choose to stop any time you want. So if your opponent mulligans 60 times, well, if you choose to draw all 60 of those times, you're actually going to deck out and you'll lose the game. So it's not mandatory. You can choose to draw 20 times and then stop. You can choose to draw 2 times and then stop. You can choose to draw those 40. You can draw as many of those 60 mulligans your opponent took as you want and stop whenever you please. So that's actually kind of nice, because otherwise your opponent could build a deck with 1 basic Pokemon and just try to mulligan you out, essentially. And that'd be kind of a sneaky way to win. I mean, they might not always win that way, but it would not feel too good if your opponent did that to you, or could do that to you. So remember, mulligan draws are optional. I encourage you to take them whenever possible, but if something freaky like that does happen, just know your opponent can't force you to deck out with mulligans. So anyway, that's the Mulligan Rule in Pokemon, and until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more videos.